Breeze looked old. Big Ben looked old. Phillip Rivers looked old. Tom Brady yesterday just looked great. And it was great because there were times yesterday I thought Tom was throwing the ball too hard on some of those in routes for his receivers. I think that's probably top 5 Tom Brady moment for me. Forget the fact he was on the road. Forget the fact the Saints, I believe, have the best roster in the NFL. Forget the fact it's a top 5 defense. Yesterday went from Tom Brady won the divorce to, God, New England made a huge, huge mistake. I don't want to hear about his weapons. Antonio Brown got hurt. Mike Evans, ineffective. Chris Godwin played poorly. Gronk, non-factor. I don't want to hear about weapons. And by the way, nobody thinks Brady had the better coach yesterday. That, my friends, was a master's class on how to win a playoff game when not everything goes well. Wisdom and leadership and moxie and intelligence and efficiency. You know, it's funny. There's always those bumper stickers. You ever seen those bumper stickers? You mean people stink. And I always think, so do people with low standards. Tom Brady yells at teammates. Tom Brady can be rough. Tom Brady barks at coaches. Tom Brady, I've heard, is rough at practice. Do it again. Let's go. Line up. Do it again. Let's go. And yesterday is the payday for that. Sometimes people are viewed as mean when all they're doing is holding you to a standard you're certainly capable of reaching, but nobody's ever demanded you reach that standard. Yesterday, Tom didn't have the system. He didn't have Belichick. He didn't have the Foxborough weather. He didn't have the better defense. No, not really. He just had Tom. 43 years of Tom Brady. That's all he had. And you know what I mean? If you'd have said before the game, all right, so Brady's going to go and play the Saints for a third time. Mike Evans, AB, Chris Godwin, and Gronk are going to combine for 7 catches. You would have said, oh my God, this is a disaster. Instead, they won going away. We've gone past the Brady won the divorce. This is New England made a huge mistake. Rivers looked old. Ben looked old. Breeze looked old. Tom looked great. Honestly, I don't know what it is. I don't know if he goes to Europe. I don't know what he's taken. Maybe it's the supermodel wife. I have no idea. Maybe it's avocado ice cream. But Drew Brees struggling perfectly framed how amazing Brady is. This feels very much like LeBron and D. Wade, where at the end, D. Wade's a Hall of Famer with great integrity, but he's coming off the bench and he's not very dynamic, and LeBron's still the best player in the game. What? How's that possible? It's not really. Maybe LeBron eats avocado ice cream for breakfast too. Breeze is still really good, but Breeze is how you age when you get to 40. That's what you look like. That's what you look like. Can't throw the deep ball. Just don't have that zip on the sideline passes. That was as impressive as I've ever seen. I don't want to hear about Belichick. I don't want to hear about the weapons. I don't want to hear about the system. Remember all those articles that came out about a year and a half ago with Tom? Anonymous sources. We could have won with a lot of quarterbacks here. Yeah, I saw Cam. It wasn't great. And Cam's not untalented. And by the way, Jameis is not untalented. Jameis is really talented. In New Orleans, he's the guy that can throw the ball, deep and stuff. 7-9 to 13-5. Maybe 14-5. Maybe 15-5.
Okay. I'm going to say it one more time. There is one man in sports I do not bet against when the money is pushed to the middle of the table. And it's Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. He was up against his greatest challenge yesterday. That's his nemesis. That's his worst nightmare. That's his matchup nightmare, because those guys can get after him and after all of his receivers. And I thought the Saints defense played extremely well yesterday.
They didn't pressure him like they did the first two games.
They didn't get after him. And your man Trey Hendrickson played, but he was not the same.
Nope.
And yet Tom Brady's offensive line rose and shone in ways that it didn't in the first two games against a team that had owned Tom Brady and company, owned them at New Orleans on opening day, and then November the 8th at what I call Tampa Bay. It was the all-time beatdown. It was Tom Brady's worst game, I thought, by far, of his career. He had a QBR of 6 in that game at home. They got dominated so bad that the time of possession was Drew Brees 40 minutes to Tom Brady 20 minutes. And he threw a frustrated late interception in which I thought he just sort of gave up and threw it up for grabs back across the field to Rob Gronkowski, and it got picked off by Malcolm Jenkins, who also played very well yesterday. Very well. He was all over the field.
Yes.
So Tom Brady went into New Orleans for a second time this year and a third time against that team that owned him and against Drew Brees, who has owned him. Drew was 5-2 against Tom Brady career. And what you saw on display was something that I hope the kids out there can comprehend and savor and embrace. Kids, you're going to get to tell your grandkids you got to see that guy play at the highest level at 43 years of age. So it's going to cross generations of, like when you're growing up, I'm growing up, who did I get to see the end of? I got to see Mickey Mantle maybe at the end.
Right.
I got to see a little bit of Johnny Unitas at the end of him.
Right.
But they weren't quite the same.
Right.
That Willie Mays was on the downside. I had to watch him play for the New York Mets.
Right.
And then if I can go fast forward, I had to watch Peyton Manning play for your Broncos in a Super Bowl in which he was just hanging on for dear life along for the ride.
He was on fumes.
On fumes. And what you saw yesterday was the culmination of the GOAT getting pushed out the back door in New England and saying, okay, I choose, and we're all thinking, Chargers maybe? Where else? Anywhere but there? Wait. He just chose Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, the worst franchise and winning percentage in all of sports? You're kidding. Oh, well, but they do have 2 Pro Bowl receivers from last year.
And Brayton and O.J. Howard.
And they do. And they have Todd Bowles, and they have a lot of pieces on defense, even though they went 7-9 last year with Jameis as the quarterback.
But, Skip, when we stepped back and we looked at it, of all the places that he could have potentially went, that was the best situation. Nobody has that collection of skill players. Maybe Kansas City, but Kansas City wasn't available.
I still thought the Chargers were intriguing. Just new stadium, stadium, and all that. The point is, it took him 1 year only, but he had to do it on the fly during a pandemic with no preseason, virtual OTAs, and he molded that team into the Patriot way on the fly. He taught that team how to win the biggest games. And they all, right on schedule, clicked, gelled, came together, and took off in the month of December. As Tom Landry always taught me when I was first in this business, you have to streak into the playoffs. If you're going to go places, you got to catch fire in December. They did, right on schedule. And you can't tell me that every player on that team doesn't look up to Brady. As Bruce Arians said last week, I tell these guys something and they don't even listen to me. Brady says the same thing to them. They're like, oh, okay, I got it. So he has become the co-head coach.
The one thing I can say about Tom Brady, that he probably does better than any quarterback that's ever played. Skip, he understands the situation. He says this game is not about 300, 400 yards passing. This game is who can avoid the turnover, who can avoid the costly mistake. And he played it as such. Skip, if you look at this, Mike Evans had 1 catch. AB had 1 catch. Gronk had 1 catch. Leonard Fournette led the team with 5 catches. So instead of putting the ball down the field and putting it in harm's way, let me take these checkdowns. Let me take these easy because turnovers will make you pay double. Skip, he started at the 41-yard line. That's the 3rd best starting field position of his playoff career. The 3 touchdowns he got, he went 40 yards, and 20 yards. Skip, it's going to be hard to beat that team. It's going to be hard to beat any team if you turn it over 4 times in the playoffs and you give them that kind of starting position.
Here's the deal, folks. Brady, obviously, was not the story yesterday. And he's probably had 15 to 20 playoff games better than the one we saw yesterday.
Sure.
But seeing Brady juxtaposed with Breeze and seeing what a 40-plus-year-old quarterback is supposed to look like, a la Drew Brees, and seeing Tom Brady still just ticking along, not making any huge mistakes, in his 14th conference championship game, it's half maddening and half marvelous. Listen, Peyton Manning retired 5 years ago. Eli Manning retired last year. Phillip Rivers is about to retire. Big Ben, best I can tell, took Wild's advice, retired at halftime a week ago. And Drew Brees on his way out. And then there's Tom, older than all of them, except for Peyton, and outlasting all of them. It's remarkable. So I have to give the man credit. It is remarkable that he's still out there. Now, was he great yesterday? No. Was he the big reason they won? No. But he wasn't the reason they lost.
Ooh.
And once again, he's in the Final Four. So, like, Brandon,
wow.
If you'd have told me 5 years ago Tom Brady'd still be playing, I'd say, get out of here. And when I saw his season end with a pick 6 last year, I was like, finally, Jason is dead. They put the knife through his heart. Nope, he's reanimated in Tampa. So, yeah, I guess I was wrong because he's still playing. He's somehow still playing, Brandon.
Brady was unconscious in the second half. He couldn't miss. You know, for all the Evans and the Antonio Brown and Gronk and Godwin talk, their leading receiver was Cameron Brate yesterday. That's the Brady difference. He's got full trust in these guys. This pass here to Scotty Miller, how clutch was that? And, you know, I texted Bill Richards, who is our mutual studio boss. He's our executive producer of all the studio stuff at Fox. I said, we have done so many breakdowns of so many mediocre and above average quarterbacks over the last 5 years working at Fox. This is what we do that for, to get Brady in Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers in an NFC championship game. There is so much mediocre quarterback play week to week. These are two of the best to ever throw a football, and we get that on Fox, 3:05 Eastern, Sunday. Colin, this is why we put in all those hours.
I don't know where to start. You know, I've been winning so much, I can't slow down for you losers like the Saints and you losers like Acho, who I've been telling since day one. Brother, you got to understand why Tom Brady is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for moments like this. Before I even get into the X's and O's, as I like to say, I want to get into the I's and the U's. So let's talk about the people before we talk about the players and how they perform. You want to know why Drew Brees went out there and struggled. You want to say, what? What did he do? What happened? You've never done this all season long. You're Drew Brees. Oh, the pressure of Tom Brady being on the other side, as I predicted, would have an effect on this team. You went out there and others saying, since they beat him the first 2 times, just show up, show them the jerseys, and it's just going to be a wrap. And I told you, Tom Brady was built for moments just like this. The reason Drew Brees struggled in part, and I don't know to what degree, is because of the pressure of the presence of Tom Brady on the other side. Now, that was the effect on the Saints. How about the impact it had on the Buccaneers as Tom Brady is now their general, now their leader? One word comes to mind: turnovers. You said Tom Brady didn't do anything? He had 3 total touchdowns. You said Tom Brady didn't do anything? You're right. He didn't commit any turnovers. You want to know what kept this same Tampa Bay Bucs team last year from getting over the hump? Turnovers. Jameis Winston and his 30 interceptions and his 5 lost fumbles was the reason this team was 7-9 last year. And they collectively said, all we need to do is address this quarterback position. Not necessarily get more prolific at the position, because Jameis Winston led the league in passing yards. What we need to do is have someone take care of the baby. Because once you take care of the baby, a few things happens. One, the defense feels energized and confident. You know this. Why? Because we know we could trust our offense. 2, 2, the other team is sitting there like, we can't make mistakes, because if we make mistakes, they're going to be opportunistic and take advantage of all of our mistakes. What you saw yesterday was the New England Patriot way, Tom Brady way. You don't even understand how it happened. There are immeasurables at play. There are intangibles at play. But it collectively adds up to a game that Acho's like, how did this occur? But if you look at the scoreboard, you know what happened. You realize that this team took advantage of the Saints' arrogance and miscues. All of that was a combination of gumbo that the Saints couldn't eat, but the Brady Bucks were over there feasting on.
Even if Tom Brady plays as well as he played yesterday, let's make no mistake about the fact that 21 points came off of Drew Brees' turnovers. 21 points. A three-yard touchdown drive off a turnover, a 20-yard touchdown drive, and a 40-yard touchdown drive. That did not come because Tom Brady's Buccaneers were marching down the field off of kickoffs. Tom Brady's Buccaneers were marching down the field off of punts. No, Tom Brady's Bucs were given a short field, 3-yard touchdown drive, short field, 20-yard touchdown drive, short field, 40-yard touchdown drive. I apologize, Marcellus, if I didn't think that Drew Brees was going to play his worst game since 2012. I mean, I could have come out here and just taken a wild guess, a simple gander. Oh, yeah, Drew Brees will have a historically bad performance in his last performance in the Superdome, allegedly. Can't nobody guess that. The Bucs played well. The Saints were severely disappointed.
Dog, you are a gifted wordsmith. I've never seen you stumble and bumble and stutter your way through takes like this ever. You want to know something about this team? Tom Brady, after week 9 and the loss. Tom Brady, after their bye week. I told you what happened. Do we have to rewind the film? They had a meeting. In that meeting, they said, we have to play complementary football. It can't be anymore just be prolific on offense. Risk it for the biscuit. It's not going to work. Tom Brady, take care of the baby. It will work. It will look boring. It won't seem like that you can pick and say where the wins are coming from, but you're going to look up at the scoreboard and you'll see a W.